Salutations everyone, and welcome to the second and final semi-final match of the BEMANI Pro League's Voltics division. Just a quick announcement before I get into this week's match. As you can see here on screen, the finals are going to be scheduled for March 21st, which means that there's roughly about a 3-week break between this match and Grand Finals, which means that there will be a 3-week period where I'm basically not covering anything on the BEMANI Pro League. If there are any side events, I will probably cover them in separate videos in the meantime, but for now, I will just leave that gap there as is, so you are well informed and are well aware that there is a bit of a gap between this match and the next one. With that said, let's get on to today's game because I'm pretty sure it is going to be a big one. So this week's match is between APINA VRAMeS and TAITO Station Tradz, two teams that differ in strategy philosophy very greatly. In fact, I'd probably argue that their strategy philosophy is arguably the most different out of any two team matchup dynamics in virtually the entirety of the BEMANI Pro League. On the one hand, APINA VRAMeS has a strategy that can best be described as throw a hammer at it and see if it sticks. They have a very aggressive rushdown strategy which does work, as they tend to play very better on generally more fundamentals based charts, but they have tripped up on multiple occasions on songs where strategy, technique, just more unorthodox patterns would come into play, which is something that the other team here, TAITO Tradz, is very good at exploiting. They've taken a page out of several teams' playbooks by adopting more unorthodox tech picks and just overall stranger song picks that other teams that are now eliminated from the league would have generally liked to have picked for a team like APINA VRAMeS. That being said, however, this match is not going to be easy. Matches like these generally tend to favor one team over the other, and at this stage of the semi-finals, anything can basically happen at this point, so we can't leave anything up to chance. For APINA VRAMeS, they've gone for a more linear setup, very reminiscent of how they went with their last match in the Interleague. So Yuichi and Paper are going to be doing double duty for the tag battle and the single battles respectively, whereas Yobate will once again take up his head position as the king of very close Megamix battles. This man has won pretty much all of his Megamix battles by a deficit of 1 point, and it'll be very interesting to see how that fares up. I should, however, preface this by saying that APINA VRAMeS has gone through a little bit of a shake-up in the week prior to this recording, as unfortunately Yuichi will probably mention this in the interview, which I don't tend to put in the VODs, but I will have a tweet up here describing it. Both other players of APINA VRAMeS were unfortunately incapacitated in some way, which almost meant that Yuichi would have had to go solo. But that being said, all three players of APINA VRAMeS are incredibly good in their own right, which probably doesn't mean that they're going to go for as much of a deficit as they usually would. For TAITO Trad's side, Waniro and Misobi will be doing double duty for tag and the second Megamix battle and the second single battle respectively, whereas Murakami will be going for the single battle and the second Megamix, which is kind of a usual position for TAITO Tradz. I think it's pretty sensical where they're going for here. Murakami is generally quite known to have very strong counter picks in general, whereas Misobi has proven himself to be a formidable match against a player like Yuichi before, which definitely puts him on the running for a very good pick to go against a team like APINA VRAMeS. Waniro doesn't really need much of an introduction. He's a very strong player who can more or less carry entire scenarios by himself, and honestly with that, I don't think there's much else we can talk about here in terms of strategy. We should just get into the games and see what we have to offer here. This is going to be a very tough match. Let's check the volume quickly. Yeah. I think this matchup is going to be very peculiar because APINA VRAMeS and TAITO Tradz have gone up against each other in the past, and their matches have been quite close. That being said, I mentioned this already, but Yobate is the kind of player that wins basically by the skin of his teeth. It's very close. So in terms of a skill deficit, I actually think it's a lot closer than people think, despite TAITO Tradz pretty much seeming like an underdog by comparison to other teams in this tournament. That being said, we had teams like Leisureland, Round 1, Game Panic, who are all already out. So really, rather than calling them underdogs, I think TAITO Tradz have definitely become the dark horses of the BEMANI Pro League. Definitely a team that is not to be underestimated under any means. Especially considering that Misobi went against Yuichi in the single battle before, and, well, he managed to pull off a stellar comeback at the last second. It is mind-blowing how that comeback occurred. So maybe we might see a repeat, but Yuichi is 100% one of the best players in this tournament by far. So TAITO Tradz really has to pull out all the stops here. They cannot afford to make any sort of mistakes here. It is nice to see that even in semifinals, all the teams can just bring that element of entertainment while being a little bit serious about the game. I will say though that APINA VRAMeS having two unfortunate mishaps back to back right before this match is really unfortunate. It could probably tip the hat over the edge for TAITO Tradz, but at the same time, you know, TAITO Tradz have been down a player for almost the entirety of the regular stage, and look where they are now. They're here. So, honestly, looking at the BEMANI Pro League now, saying that you can't leave anything up to chance, it is really interesting how the expected outcomes almost virtually never happen. It is very, very interesting to see these happen. And to be honest, I'm all for it. It is very entertaining to watch. But also at the same time, it's very heartbreaking because you know that everybody has worked so hard to get here. But unfortunately, at the end of the day, you know that only one team can really win these events. Which sucks. But with that being said, we are going into the first match already. The first single match between Paper and Murakami. Paper, the S-Crit grinder. A very strong player in general versus Murakami. Probably one of the biggest players in Japan. Has the highest Volt Force in the entirety of Japan. Has shown a very strong showing, both in BPL and in general with Sound Voltic so far. True. Call him Paper because he is going to be making bank. I think in 17s in particular, the skill deficit between Paper and his opponents are going to be a lot lower because this is definitely his forte. And picking a chart like Continue is probably going to show that. This is a tricky one-hand shot. Whereas Murakami's pick is going to be Line for Ruin Kohu Mix. Ooh. Both players are playing to win here because these are picks you, for real, you pick with absolute confidence in yourself. Continue is a chart that really has several BPM changes throughout. It's a chart that starts out slow. If anything, actually, the first BPM changes right at the start of the chart, which is very unorthodox and also throws you off if you're trying to fix your high speed impromptu. Whereas Line for Ruin Kohu Mix is kind of like a taster of what 18s are going to be like. It's not as super dense, but the one-hand patterns and the 24th stairs that show up here and there do make it quite a little bit harder to time on the stamina front, because you are going to be very tired throughout. You will probably be quite tired in terms of having to time the normal parts. The easier parts will probably trip you up a lot harder. So, knowing that both players have picked charts that do in some ways counter-pick each other will be an interesting sight to see, because so far we haven't really seen counter-picks on both sides. We've seen players like Kawa-chan specifically go after charts like Spatiotemporal Shockwave Syndrome, Feel Seasickness, that are specifically designed to target a player's weaknesses. But it's very rare to see a chart, or to see picks on both teams and from both players in a single battle that specifically target an element that both players would be bad at specifically. For Continue specifically, this slow BPM will be, dare I say, quite detrimental to a player like Murakami, because his high speed being a little bit lower means that reading will be quite a task, I will like to say. Whereas a chart like Line for Ring Kohu Mix is not as easy to time on for sure, even for somebody who's proficient in grinding for S-crits like Paper. So both teams have probably strategized this call out quite heavily in advance. And of course, Murakami is probably starting to feel a little bit of that pressure now, because the lead is narrow, but still a noticeable lead nonetheless. On charts like Continue, where you have quite a lot of BPM changes, especially like this one here, having a slower high speed does actually prove to be a lot more of a hindrance than it is a benefit. As you can see here, Murakami has to sort of change his high speed, not necessarily out of habit, but out of force. Because otherwise it's just going to be really infuriating to read. But it's a really tight back and forth right now. Both players are dropping left and right. I don't blame him. Trying to keep your timing on hard shots like these, especially hard 17s like Continue, it's going to be really tough. But it does look like Murakami will take that clean 3-point lead. And a clean first blood for TAITO Tradz. Absolutely over the moon. These scores are amazing. Reading on softland shots like this is no mean feat by any stretch of the imagination. So it is quite nice that both teams really going the extra mile here to practice on these. That is true. Paper is one of the only players to use a non-anime girl navigator. It is quite funny actually how I'd argue Salvoltex is very equal representation in terms of male and female navigators. And I guess in character diversity. But, you know, it is predominantly anime girls. Going into Line for Ring Koho Mix here. Quite the interesting choice for Murakami, considering how slow his scroll speed is by comparison. High speed 7 is probably a little fast for most new players. But by comparison to Paper's high speed of 8.15, which is pretty close to mine, which is around 850, it does feel a lot harder to read on face value. That being said, Murakami's strategy is paying dividends here. Because having to time these one-hand sections, especially with 6 deep transitions, is not the easiest. Especially when you have to transition FX jacks like that. One-hand FX jacks in particular are a very different beast compared to doing jacks normally. Because they require a degree of fine control that, at this kind of level, you really do need to have down almost to not a fine motor skill. You have to have that committed to muscle memory almost. Does seem like Paper is struggling quite a bit here. He's stretching himself quite thin in terms of movement, trying to keep his accuracy consistent. But Murakami is not giving any ground away. He doesn't look phased in the slightest. On the other hand, Paper's breathing is starting to get a little bit tense. And with that, another clean win for Murakami. The swift 2-0 And Max, wow, that is a pretty good score. Murakami highlighting just why he has some of the highest, if not the highest VOD force in the entirety of Japan. A player that 100% matches the best. APINA VRAMeS are strong, but TAITO Tradz have proven that they are equally as skilled in virtually every department. And if we remember anything from their previous matchup, it was a lot closer than what a lot of people expected. So maybe this Mega Mix battle could go differently, could not. You never know. Of course, Yobate playing with a fairly considerable handicap of a literal broken leg. So this could be pretty tough. I can't imagine playing through pain is going to be particularly fun, nor will it be easy. But Waniro has had his fair share of bad luck in Mega Mix before, so perhaps luck may be on APINA VRAMeS' side here. That being said, we've seen all sorts of strategies going into the Mega Mix battles, especially as we are now pretty much on the cusp of Grand Finals. We've seen all sorts of counterpick strategies, strategies designed more or less to clinch out wins. And Yobate is going for what he's good at. High speed, pretty straightforward charts. Whereas Waniro is going for a much more balanced position, I'd say. Shakinetsu Beachside and Ghost Family we've seen before. Definitely designed to throw you off your toes in terms of timing. Whereas a lot of his other picks we've definitely seen before in other aspects. I think Waniro has picked quite a few of these himself in the past. But man, these Yobate picks are pretty tight. Empire Flame, quite well known for the chord streams, plus drops line. Pretty fast song, especially with a BPM change somewhere around the middle. Elpis in particular is a pretty difficult chart, especially for Mega Mix, because when you put a lot of these charts together, I think they become much harder than you are when you separate them into just their own individual full-scale charts. Because not only is your momentum going to be thrown off by the intermissions, you're also going to be thrown off by having to adjust your high speed, perhaps checking your score, enabling exceed gear. Does seem like Yobate is already starting to feel a lot of heat. He does not look in good condition. He's feeling pretty rough. That being said, Waniro also doesn't seem to have the best time in terms of figuring out his settings. Already having to mess with his offset, which is usually never a good sign when you're playing in a tournament. Messing with your offset right as you're about to start a song is kind of a bad sign, I feel. It's almost like having to button check probably like 30 seconds before a round start. It's not easy and it's definitely not ideal. Perhaps the commentator's curse is already starting to hit in already. I've had my fair share of commentator's curse so far, which is both equal parts amusing and awkward, but then again, the BEMANI Pro League has shown itself that anything can happen in rhythm games. People just aren't prepared for them. And man, these Mega Mix battles have been some of the highlights so far in terms of diversity in game strategy. Because you start to see the psychological aspect of rhythm games start to kick in much more than the physical and I guess the stamina based, which I guess ties into both physical and mental aspects of rhythm games. Because that points-based system giving you another mental edge or detriment really can throw you off at the worst possible moments. And I mean, we're already starting to see that because both Waniro and Yobate are sort of playing like they're fighting for their lives. That did look like a pretty straightforward set of patterns, but they're starting to feel it a little bit. And they haven't even really started yet. Going into Empire Flame here. Dealing with the burgers masterfully well. Very clean burgers. Ooh, very well done. Okay, maybe not count Yobate out just yet. He's doing alright. But he's already starting to sweat like crazy. My god. I haven't seen a player in BPL at all sweat as hard as Yobate is right now. We're only 3 tones in and he's already started to basically start melting. Maybe the pressure is, on some level, starting to hit APINA VRAMeS in a way that's really making them crack. We have seen quite a lot of first turn ties in Megamix, that is true. We haven't seen too many devastating early blowouts just yet. But then again, at semi-final stage, you really don't want that to happen, because that can more or less spell the end. Especially in the second Megamix battle where you have so many points just sitting there on the line. You cannot afford to give any of that leeway away. Ah, get it? Wanino doesn't feel too pressured though, which is very interesting. He's a little bothered, but he's not letting it get to his head, which is definitely the kind of mental fortitude you want to see at this kind of level of the game. This is what I was talking about as well with mental fortitude. Trying to keep your exceed gear and your points average up so that you can benefit very hard from your points. Because you do not want to drop your exceed gear at any point during a Megamix battle, especially if it's Megamix, especially if it's exceed gear level 2 or higher. Because if you drop 5 or even 8 points like that, just on the fly, it is going to set you back so much. Not just in terms of the points you lose, but also in terms of the points you could have earned. Because, of course, your opponent will more than likely still have at least a full bar of exceed gear left over to gain points themselves. And having that advantage more or less given to them can be such a devastating mental blow. But Waniro is already coming back with a fairly strong retaliation already. Halfway through this first Megamix battle now. Oh, Tsunami is pretty tight. And then again, this is Megamix battle. You can afford to make a few timing mistakes as long as you don't hit near. In that sense, it is very lenient. But leniency is what Waniro does not want to give. Yobate being forced on the back foot here. Now, hug versus hug and okay hug me. Very nice one-hand picks. Because you can force a particular advantage here if you set your cards right. But it doesn't look like it's adding up. God. I did say at the start that this is going to be a battle of strategic mentality first and foremost. And we really are starting to see so many elements of that come into the fold here. Waniro's movements are clean. Whereas Yobate is starting to get a little bit hectic here. You can see that kind of very aggressive gameplay coming to the forefront here. If you take a look at Yobate's hands, he's not exactly rushing, but there's a certain force to his movements. It's very different from a player like Waniro. He's generally quite clean and smooth with his button presses here. It's much more fluid by comparison, I want to argue. And it does seem like it's paying off here. Yobate might be staging a comeback here. But it's going to be rough. Yobate absolutely has to make sure that Waniro does not get the succeed gear off. Because if Waniro gets these points, it is Jowarida. Especially on a chart like Take a Step Forward. Here we go, the sudden burst. And a massive advantage is given way in Waniro's favor. My god. That was such a sudden boost in points advantage. And with that, Yobate, knowing he doesn't have any ground left to give, all he can do now is just save face and just make sure the points deficit isn't too big. Does seem like Waniro has a particular weakness for certain one-hand patterns. Ooh. And in a sudden turnaround, Yobate is the one to lose by 1 point. Waniro taking yet another 2 points for Taito Station Tradz. My god, I don't want to say this could be a sweep, but this is looking quite tight for APINA VRAMeS. The thread gets thinner and thinner with every game they concede. It's not looking too good. Yobate is crushed by that, and I don't blame him. I do not blame him. Losing by 1 point is awful. Terrible feeling. But he played very admirably considering his handicap. So, major props to Yobate for putting on a very good fight there. Because I imagine anyone else would not be playing that well in that kind of situation that they're put in. But the tag battle is up next. APINA VRAMeS absolutely have to gain ground here. Taito Tradz are, by this point, proving themselves to be probably the team left to beat. Because there are only 3 teams left, and one of them is already in Grand Finals. That being Gigo, who are themselves underdogs in their own right. So let's see what they pull out here for the tag battle. Perhaps we'll see another counter pick strategy like we saw for the first single. But this will be valuable warm-up for Misobi, considering that he hasn't yet had the chance to play so far. And he's going to need all the warm-up he can get, because he's got to play in the solo battle against Yuichi again after this. APINA VRAMeS' pick is going to be Big Bang Faker. Okay. What does Taito Tradz have in the tank? Gigadelic! Camellia's The Terror remix. Now these are certainly button-heavy charts, but differing in their own right. Big Bang Faker, definitely a chart I would consider very swing-like. At times, signatures do feel a little wonky around the edges, and having to deal with mini jacks about 160 BPM with swing attached is not particularly fun to time on for sure. It will be a testament to a player's skill if they manage to keep their accuracy going consistently all the way throughout. Whereas Gigadelic is very much a different chart, I'd say. You can definitely see the philosophies branching apart quite hard here. A chart that's very jack heavy, probably perhaps almost foreshadowing in many senses the kinds of charts that Tradz wants to go for. They are going for much more unorthodox charts that do cater harder towards APINA VRAMeS' skill set, because they know that there are elements even in patterns, charts, and particular skills that you're good at that you will have failed a spot check on. And TAITO Tradz definitely want to see if APINA have put in that kind of hard work. It's definitely a call out for sure, because if we remember the match between TAITO Tradz and Silcat, for instance, Silcat had a domineering lead in the fundamentals and accuracy department compared to TAITO Tradz. So perhaps this is something that APINA VRAMeS are trying once again to desperately exploit now. Especially on a chart like Big Bang Faker. A chart that's definitely quite easy to clear for most players starting to branch into 18s. But it's a chart that is not easy to time on by any means. Especially with these 16th trills. 155 BPM is not too fast by any stretch of the imagination, but dealing with swing on top of this, yeah, there's going to be a bit of difficulty involved, that's for sure. Setsuo nailed it on the head there. You do have to pay close attention here to how you time on these, because these jacks do come at an irregular rhythm. As you saw just there, that was a pretty funky set of jacks. Does seem like Misobi is a little bit trigger happy right now. He is very active with how he hits some of these buttons. It's definitely a similar level of force to how Yobate hit his buttons during the Mega Mix section for sure. But it does seem like TAITO Tradz are matching them tit for tat here. Very impressive showing. But this does 100% feel like a chart that is very much in APINA VRAMeS' alley. Just as I say that, that gap immediately shortens and widens again. These 24th stairs are so gaudy to time on. It is ridiculous. It is very rare that you see swing like this, but doesn't matter. TAITO Tradz read the call out, and with max minus 25 between them, TAITO Tradz are once again taking another clean win. God. It's looking rougher and rougher for APINA VRAMeS as every single song goes on. Especially with a chart like Gigadelic, because Gigadelic Terror Remix is not an easy chart by any stretch of the imagination. If anything, you go from very awkward timed jacks on the parts of Big Bang Faker to much more telegraphed, but much more fast, much more draining, and much more unpredictable jacks in this chart. So let's see which team just ends up having the better strategy here. Ready these one-hand patterns, pushing a strong lead in TAITO Tradz's favor. You might be thinking, 5 points isn't that big a lead, but at this stage in semifinals, you will take any advantage you can get. Yuichi has played this song quite a lot. The commentator's just briefly talking about it now. But here we get into where Gigadelic Terror Remix is quite well known for. I really do love these transitions with the one hands in the chart. It is really fun. Once you nail the timing down, it really makes you feel that this is a chart that is very embodiment of Sound Vortex. That sort of fluid, fast-paced, but very natural feeling movement, I want to say. But here we're getting to the meat of Gigadelic Terror Remix. Oh, these one-hand trills giving TAITO Tradz an overwhelming advantage. These streams immediately transitioning into jacks is very awkward, especially at 183 BPM. Because it feels very non-linear, but in a way that should actually feel quite straightforward when you think about it. But let's see how they deal with the burger pan at the end here. Oh, a PUC for Yuichi is expected, but TAITO Tradz are absolutely matching everything that's being thrown at them. The Tradz sweep does seem to be real here. Oh my god. If you saw that points deficit, it went from like 7 or 8 to like 23 in an instant. Gosh. Those chord streams transitioning into the 3-button jacks is not easy in the slightest. It throws you off from time to time if you don't remember to transition quickly enough. And for their merit, all 4 players cleared that section amazingly well. But you do have to be careful of just where your hands end up when you have to transition your hand back to deal with the streams. God, the pressure is mounting now. APINA VRAMeS have to absolutely win every single match now. Yobate and Yuichi have to play more or less to perform a miracle. There's no other way around it. There is no shot now that they can let this go. But as we've seen before, the brute force strategies are hampered particularly hard by a coherent, well-planned, thought-out counterpick strategy. And TAITO Tradz are 100% exploiting it isn't even an understatement at this point. Yobate once again going for tracks that he's very confident in. Whereas Murakami... Ooh, the generator for ultra players. Seiren. Ooh. Chrono Diver Pendulums is well known for its very intense streams for a 19. It's a chart that, if you understand the timing, you can do very well on. But when you have to put it in the context of Mega Mix, it's not exactly the easiest. On the other hand, Reviver, Last Resort, Fly Like You, Feel Seasickness. There's a strategy going on here. On Yobate's side. The generator though, Cosmo Bosso P, charting jankiness. Especially for ultra players in the mix as well. Probably the traditional 19. It's interesting actually that Yobate doesn't actually go for the 19 for Blastix Riots. Because I imagine the gravity chart would pay off to be a really good pick here. But maybe I feel maybe he's just not confident enough to pick it. Which I don't blame him for. Because perhaps you didn't practice enough for your pick. And then you are forced into a position where you absolutely need to win in order to turn the tables. You want to have that avenue of advantage ready and willing for you to take care of at any given moment. So maybe perhaps actually Yobate decided to play a little bit conservatively here. Maybe confident that he would be a lot closer than this. Which is not going to pay off for him here, perhaps, if he loses. It's already going to be devastating, but this is APINA VRAMeS' last chance to turn the tide. Because if they don't start earning points here, it is all over for them. Though, that being said, you know, going out in top 4, not a bad run. Not a bad run at all. Especially with a team as talent as stacked as this.
4, 3, 2, 1,
Murakami is stoic as always though. He's definitely a friendly fella, that's for sure. Oh, already a big miss on Murakami's part. Yobate's gonna need every opportunity he can take here. Because this is going to be a tense battle. And with that, he's already taken a point off. But man, I don't know if it's the lighting, but he is absolutely out of it right now. It's honestly quite hard looking at Yobate because he is sweating up a storm. And honestly, who can blame him? Because being put in a position like this is not easy at all. Both players dealing with this very cleanly though. Does look like Murakami is going to take back an advantage here. Tying the game up 2 songs in. And tie it up he does. Very impressive showing. It is very hard not to underestimate just how tough these matches are gonna be. Because when 19s and I don't know if 20s are gonna be included in finals for Megamix are added into the fold, you have a very diverse strategy at play. Do you play it safe? Do you play it aggressively? Do you play it by ear? Do you pick the hard songs to pick the easy songs? Many things to talk about. Based on Seal Sickness indeed. Going on to Nexter here. These streams are quite tight in terms of timing. Ooh, especially those trills into the jack there. She's a solid pixel around from the place for sure. But isn't close. Is his score deficit? A track like Full by Fly Like You? I am stuttering a lot today, sorry about this. Is one hell of a chart, especially this late into the game. We haven't seen too many 19s in Megamix so far, have we? Yobate is running ragged here in this match. It is really tense to see. He honestly looks like he could just collapse at any moment. Not only is the pressure getting to him, he is very much at the end of his tether here. He's struggling a lot here. Oh, this does look like cap trouble, actually. There's no way he struggled that hard. Yobate definitely got that dog in him right now. Though he does come out on top during that mini burger section. Gosh. Murakami is stone-faced. He's not faced in the slightest. Doesn't matter how many points APINA VRAMeS don't want to give up, he will keep fighting. This probably could be a very close game. Especially with 4 turns left. And here we see classic Cosmo Bosso P charting in action. His 16th and 24th bursts are just absolutely shit on you remorselessly. Why is this a thing? And dealing with that chill very clearly as well. How are we all feeling about the format of Mega Mix? Because it's really interesting to see that players have had to change their strategy on some fundamental level or another just to be able to adopt the format. God, you can really see just how different both players feel right now. Yobate with the grin of his life whenever he manages to get away with something unpunished. Whereas Murakami, doesn't matter. He'll stone face it and move on. Ooh. This one-hand stare is not the easiest by far. Especially when the Chod is already slowing down and is continuing to slow down. This does feel like a signature change for sure. And with that, Murakami has sealed the deal on APINA VRAMeS. There's no way that Yobate can come back from this, right? Especially on a fast shot like Reviver. God, so many bursts thrown in so regularly here. That drop is detrimental though. Oh my god. Dealing with that trill was so well done, but might not be enough. And with that, Murakami is going to take yet another set of points for TAITO Tradz, essentially guaranteeing them a place in the finals next to Team Gigo. God, the game's not over yet, but it is an amazing revelation to see unfold. Team that had a rough start like TAITO Tradz, now coming back from the brink in order to come all the way to here. Unbelievable. And with that, their place in the finals is secured. TAITO Tradz are moving on to the grand finals of the BEMANI Pro League alongside Gigo, while APINA VRAMeS are out and about. At the very least now, Yuichi can attempt to save some face and bring the team some much needed glory, especially at a time like this. I really do not blame Yobate in paper for being disappointed. Being sick and having a broken leg really take you out of the game so hard. And coming here despite that is such a testament to the dedication as players. A player ain't truly dedicated until they start playing while they're sick. But Yuichi versus Misobi, we've seen this matchup before. And a matchup it certainly has been. Yuichi throwing so hard on Sayonara Planet Wars against Misobi, allowing him to come with an insanely good comeback. Like, I am in awe how good that comeback was. It is amazing. You know, it's almost like, you know, skill actually matters a lot, but I digress. Yuichi's pick here is going to be Elemental Creation! Ooh. He's calling out Misobi here. This might be revenge. As Misobi's going to go for a pick of Infinite Blaster! An eye for an eye, it seems. Two shots known particularly for one thing and one thing in mind. The Jacks! Elemental Creation, very well known for a very long jack halfway through the chart, as well as a series of slower jacks throughout. Was Infinite Blaster, a chart already known for the 18 having probably the most well-known jack, if not one of the most well-known jacks in Sound Voltex, with also just a considerable amount of trills at a very high BPM. 197 is not easy to time on, especially for 24ths and 30 seconds. So this is going to be a tight battle for sure. Definitely an accuracy battle. Leon is 100% right here. It all comes down to two things: your stamina and your endurance. Because missing heavily on one of these jacks is going to set you back so much. I genuinely cannot understate enough just how hard it will hit if you miss one of these jacks in any capacity. Even if you just near rush the jack, it's gonna put you back so much. Going into Yuichi's pick of Elemental Creation. An event crossover, actually. And already going into these 212 BPM jacks. Yuichi already taking a strong lead. But can he keep the momentum up? Let's see if he can keep the chain going. Both players are definitely going for a more active playstyle here, which is very, very nice to see. Seeing much more confident fluidity from both players in terms of how they play here. Misobi choking a little bit there on the transitional jacks. I don't blame him. Sometimes he can get thrown off by the rhythm just a little bit here. But the gap is still bearable. Can go in either player's favor from this point onwards, so let's see how it goes. God. We are approaching the infamous jack now. It's coming up. Here it comes. Here we go. 1, 2. And then the long jack at the end. Misobi coming back. Wait, the turnaround. Going for a 3-point lead in Yuichi's favor to a 2-point lead in Misobi's. Man, this could go in anyone's favor now. And a 12-point turnaround. Wait. We're nearing the end now. This could be a TAITO Tradz sweep. Can Misobi keep his cool at the end here? A 3-point lead. 2. It's tight. 1. Misobi with the 1-point lead to take yet another point for TAITO Station Tradz. Yuichi is devastated by that. My god. Once again, Yuichi's goose has been cooked. TAITO Tradz are cooking. And APINA VRAMeS cannot handle what's being cooked in the kitchen. My god. Yuichi has been choking so much during BPL, but to have it backfire like that at such a crucial moment is so devastating. My god. He is not happy at all. And already, Misobi throwing it back with a 13-point lead for TAITO Station Tradz already. God. Yuichi isn't just shaken now, he's stirred. His martini is not looking too well here. God, you can see the look on his face. He is both mortified and furious. It speaks volumes to just how talented Misobi is as a player here. Being able to keep his cool against such a strong player like Yuichi. Just looking for a moment where a comeback can be possible and taking that opportunity in his hands. Unbelievable to think that at such a young age, he's already got such strong mental game. Basically down pat, it's like muscle memory for him. Unbelievable. And already we're nearing the end of Blaster here. How will they deal with the Jack? Oh! The lead is massive now! Going from 20-ish points to 65! This is TAITO Station Trad's answer. Their resolve, their motivation, their confidence, everything has lined up here at this one moment. And with this, TAITO Station Tradz are cleanly through to the grand finals of the BEMANI Pro League. What a clean showing. 9.998. Unbelievable. 16-0. You don't see games like this in football. What a turnaround. People had little faith in TAITO Station Tradz going into this, but they have proven the naysayers wrong. The Tradz sweep is real, but we still have the sight read up for grabs. Ladies, gentlemen, and monarchs of every element, let's see what the sight read, the final sight read of semi-finals, and the final one before grand finals, the final 19, has up for grabs. Drum roll! Are you ready? Glory of Fighters by Rough Screams. My god, there is a lot to unpack in this chart. Affected by Mad Child. BPM change. Rough Screams. The title already seeming like it's going to be a sequel to Booths of Fighters. Very well known for the chord streams in the second half. BPM changes? My god. This is going to be a chart to look out for sure. Do not miss this. This is going to be one hell of a chart to look at. It does look like every element of a Mad Child Rough Sketch combo is just going to be thrown into the woods here. Let's see how both players weather the storm. Already starting off with burgers, okay. And a random 48th jack? That's insane. My god. Yuichi sight read that very well. It's almost like he knew it was coming, which is unbelievable. And here we go. Already going with cross hands. Very reminiscent of Ghost Family living in Graveyard. We saw this last week. Ooh. These jacks are not nice at all. Mad Child is not playing fair here. And already we have our first BPM slowdown of the chart. Combined with some of the most uncomfortable chord streams in a hot minute. And another BPM stream. God. These cross hands are uncomfortable, man. Holy. This chart really tests your knowledge as a Sound Vortex player. Yuichi really has to make sure that APINA frames don't get fully swept. But a chart like this is certainly a chart of all time to make sure that doesn't happen. A 53-point lead going into the chord stream patterns here. Definitely very reminiscent of Booths of Fighters. It does feel like it's sped up a little bit there. Oh, those mini jacks in 30 seconds. Oh. 139-point lead. My god. That's a big lead for sure. Oh, man. And with that, APINA VRAMeS have made sure they haven't been completely swept. But that was a rough fight by every stretch of the imagination. And with that, TAITO Station Tradz are securely through to the grand finals of the BEMANI Pro League. Congratulations to them. God, I do not envy APINA VRAMeS one bit because they are put through hell and back, having to go through so many disadvantages and handicaps going into this. It is not easy having to deal with a player who is physically incapacitated and a player who's feeling under the weather. But they've definitely tried their hardest. And hey, it's not like they're a bad team by any stretch of the imagination. APINA VRAMeS were the team to beat. And people thought that APINA VRAMeS were going to be the team to beat in grand finals. But the BEMANI Pro League is ever full of surprises. Man, I am very happy for TAITO Station Tradz. They have come through and gone through so many trials and tribulations to make it this far. So this spot in the grand finals next to Gigo is more than deserved. All I can say is, everybody, look forward to the grand finals of the BEMANI Pro League on March 21st. Until next time, everybody, I am Novalaxia. Thank you for watching. Oh, beef! 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 Let's go! Let's go! Let's go!